hold on.
This piece is called Pup. There once was a pup who bared his teeth like a wolf, howled as if ready to bite with his freshly grown canines. He had decided his pack, a fair-sized one with wolves who lured him with ideas of infinite bones and being feared and all the things typical of a wolf. The pup saw the wolves howl upon the moon's arrival, saw the animals which cowered at the sight of the noise, began to fear the forest at night itself. For they knew wolves feasted upon innocent others. The pup found it quite cool. And so, like many others, he would indoctrinate himself. Paint his fur red from wild cranberries, berries found on an overhang facing the moon's peak in which he would muster the closest thing to a cow feasible for his feeble frame. And in the coming nights, the pup would begin to grow out his canines and stand in red, ruffle his fur and let dirt cover his blonde coat. His ears would stay perked, sharp, never softening, for alert was always high. And in the coming nights, the pup would begin to look much less like a pup, but like a wolf. But then the grass would be painted red. Red like the color that permanently stained his fur and every other member of his pack. It would happen late at night as the moon fell out of sight. Teeth would sink into and tear pieces from the flesh of other wolves, and the overhang in which they claimed their turf would become littered with bodies. He would cower, as he was faced with wolves not from his pack. You could tell because they painted themselves with blueberries, not cranberries like the one he was painted with. And he rode back towards the cliff with fear in his eyes, for he was not at the top anymore. In fact, it felt like he was at the bottom. And for the first time in forever, the wolf's eyes would soften and begin to water, but not cry, because no matter how hard he tried, he wasn't able. And his ears would soften and fold down as his whole body drew down to the floor as if pleading for forgiveness. And his canines wouldn't look so sharp and scary anymore, for in reality, he was still just a pup, playing the part of a wolf. And as he was eventually overtaken, because there was no mercy in this world, his eyes would die out, staring at the field of red-stained grass littered with the bodies of which he now recognized to too be pups like him, painted with crayon and blueberries, strung by the idea of power which they were taught since youth to chase. His last words would be whimpers, not howls, whimpers. For there was, once, a pup who bared his teeth like a wolf, howled like a wolf, fought like a wolf, but in the end he was still just a pup.
I've lost control of it all. You've only need to look outwards, said a sheep, bleeding. There's a bigger picture, the cow mood. When you realize what you have and who you are, what you've been called, everything becomes much easier when you realize you're not alone. The horse neighed. It's all right, farmer. Look at us. We've got our control back now, said the rest of the animals, and ate the farmer with just their bare teeth until only its bones remained.
This piece is called 2/11/26, and it's written by Prather. I don't think that's her last name.
What's happening?
And the date that it was written on was remind me
The Pam Bondi hearing about the Epstein.
the Pam Bondi hearing about the Epstein files, so that's why it's called that. Okay. 5 a.m. Alarm shriek. Wake up. 5:10. Stare at ceiling. Watch fans swing. 5:20. Bathroom. Hurry up. 5:25. Remove mouth tape. Heatless curls. Lip mask. 5:30. Is that a pimple? Hurry up. 5:45. Primer. Retinol. Cleanse, you dirty whore. Scrub. Harder. Clean. More. 6. Put lipstick on the pig. 6:30. Get dressed. 6:40. Not that. Slut. 6:50. Keys. Purse. Heels. Hurry up. 7:15. Clock in. Smile. Head down. 7:30. If you're not early, you're late. 8. Meeting. 8:10. Stop talking. 8:15, shut up and listen. 8:30, feel rejection. 8:45, dread. 9, get coffee for the team. 9:45, cry in the car. 10, put lipstick on the pig. 10:10, be dramatic and over-emotional. 10:30, hurry up. 11, you can't wear things like that here. 11:30, gym instead of lunch break. 12:30 p.m., everyone's looking at you. 1, email, fix your posture. 3, make small talk. 5, drive home. 6, eat dinner. 7, scroll. 8, shower, scrub, harder, clean, more. 8:30, watch the droplets fall. 9, put your stupid plastic on. 9:30, you won't be pretty forever. 9:45, lie in bed. 10, go to sleep, now. 11, hurry up.
An endless reign and an endless war. A war that should not have happened, but so is any war. All war is for the sake of war. As was this one, and so the sister cried. The sister's tears crashed down the streams and turned dirt to mud. The soldiers would look up and could not see the sky. They prayed and prayed to the sister to cease her cries, but she could not hear them. All she could hear were the battle cries of her brother, the arm that swings and the sword that kills. She remembered as she lay in the sky looking on to the world, the faraway days of river splashing and corridor dancing, of garden laughing and night whispering. Now the night whispered the song of death, and she could not stand humming those tunes any longer. So she went on her knees to the sister. She knew that the sister saw all that came or went. Not a thing could be free of her gaze. But the sister could not feel it. So the night hummed her tune once more, whispering in the sister's ears the horrors of the moon and stars, the sorrow of the young ones, no longer dancing but pleading, no longer laughing but crying. The night pinched the sister's hand to make her feel what she had not felt since she had been so young. The sister's eyes widened at once, the sight which she thought knew all blurred. Since the night's visit, she would look to the sky, wondering of the sister, imagining her pain, her ribs cut open to pour the oceans of the world once again. The night sighed, yet grinned the sly grin of the darkening sky, for she had not sung her gale song for many moons, and thus she was pleased. The night was merry, and the brother wished for sun and dryness and cleanness and food and home and his sister. And his sister, she looked upon her brother from up in her sky and cried some more, for she also wished for sun and for dryness and for cleanness and for food and for home and for her brother. She could have as much as all as she wanted, except for one. He wished more for war, and she would not take his wish away from him. She would not, no matter her anger nor her sorrow, no matter the night's begging, no matter the sun's indifference, no matter the children's cries of fear and anguish, she would not. If she could have it, she would give her sky to him, but she couldn't. The sun wouldn't want it. Long ago, the sun gave her this bed and wished for her to stay, so she must. The night may beg to her, but neither of them shine as bright as the sun. But the sister does not realize. Even the sun cannot see all. He cannot turn the lands into ocean. He cannot grow the trees higher than the clouds. He cannot lie in his bed in the sky and still have the world in his hands. They both make soldiers kneel and whine, but only one can make them fall into the mud and give his life for the world to soften. But soften she does not. Her ribs bleed out the ocean until earth is nothing but her tears. And in her tears, the dolphins and fish and sharks and coral and whales and crabs and turtles and slugs and rays and squids and more swim and rejoice. They have the world to themselves now, and the soldiers cannot spoil their riches. At some time then, her hand will reach out from the sky and fist around a red. And its tail will sting, and it will remind her of the night's pinch. And their sister will remember once again and feel once more, and she will call upon the sun.
So this piece is called Funny Smiles. It's technically still a work in progress, but I'm just going to read until it's apart. Funny Smiles. I feel funny. I felt funny. I felt funny when I fell asleep with a funny feeling. I felt funny when I woke up early and my head filled with funny thoughts. I felt funny when I slowly brushed my teeth and had to stare down with my reflection in the mirror, getting lost in my head with funny thoughts. I felt funny as I stepped over the threshold that separates the concrete stairs and the fluorescent lights and the tiled floors and the dented lockers and the motivational signs and don't vape posters. I feel funny. It's a hard feeling to describe, but funny feels justified enough. This feeling is funny, but the funny thing is that the feeling isn't actually funny. I don't feel like laughing, I don't feel comfortable, I don't feel like cracking jokes. But that's funny too because I'm still feeling funny. Now, if I were in the mood, I might think of ways to break the ice, maybe read a joke or two. But no, this funny feeling is sickening, is stupidly honest yet weakening. The funniness spreads through my body, contaminating me from my head to the soles of my feet. It's an indescribable feeling that I'm calling funny because it's funny how it's still indescribable, but funny is a good descriptor for it, making me weird and broken and off-kilter. The faces aren't helping either. Yes, the faces. I don't like making eye contact. The bell rings, I take off. I don't look at people. I stare at the feet, stopping abruptly or slowing to meet more feet. I make a beeline through the river of expensive shoes and sweaty socks and open-toe shoes with people's toes on display. But on the rare occasion I happen to lift my chin, I see a face staring back, often one with a smile molding to my features. The expressions I see on their faces, that may not even be an expression of what they're feeling, but the default face they make when they see people, feels directly towards me. It's their, hi, I acknowledge you face, but it doesn't actually express how they feel. It's a reflection of what persona they want to radiate to the strangers, reciprocating the symbolic features morphing into an all smile. Funny smiles. Because again, that's how I feel when I come across those small words. Funny. A weird sensation blooms in the pit of my stomach and thoughts rise in my head. What do? Do I smile back? Was the smile meant for me? But before I can act, we pass each other and I don't dare look back. That's when I realize transition periods are but mere fleeting moments of inner chaos and awkward glances and loud conversations and of course, funny smiles.
Get this pulled up. But, so this is like a thing that like, kind of like, I don't know, it's not for rioting, this is not really like related, and Eli, you can leave if you are gonna die of embarrassment, because this is gonna be like kind of corny.
You're not corny, you're amazing, Josephine.
Amen. Nice. But, basically, I chose to read this piece because someone who's really close to me recently, well, she's been fighting cancer for years, but it's recently gotten like to a point where it's not really much we can do about it anymore. And so I wrote this poem in January when my hamster died of a brain tumor. And I was just thinking about, like, obviously, like, nothing is a metaphor. Like, everything just exists and comes into the world as it is, and is what it is. But cancer is kind of a really strange and horrifying thing because it's something that can't really be dealt with in the terms of like traditional like combating disease, traditional progress, anything like that, because it's something that's inevitable when you have multicellular life. And what cancer is something that breaks the foundations of multicellularity, and there are 5 of those foundations. And so these are the things that make it possible for cells to work together in one organism and create life. And that is proliferation inhibition, controlled cell death, resource allocation, division of labor, and environmental maintenance. And I think that those things, like having checks on growth, having further checks on growth through controlled death, having the sharing of resources, the helping of other people, the specialization into certain functions, and the maintenance of our environment is something that keeps society together too. And so I think what happens in one body and what can tear one body apart can be like transposed onto like what happens in the society and what can tear an entire society apart. And I wrote this poem about a hamster, and hamsters are very different from humans, and I think they have a lot fewer of those traits because they can't really love each other. Like they're solitary animals. All they do is they go around like cannibalizing each other and raping each other and stuff. And that's how a lot of animals function that are like more primitive than us. And they're pretty awful, but there's nothing they can do about it, and they can't really function in the same way that we can.
and we sort of came upon them by accident. We domesticated them from Syria, put them in labs to like test diseases, and it turns out they weren't very good at that, but people thought they were cute, so they started keeping them as pets. And something about hamsters is that they tend to die. Like even if they aren't getting these communicable diseases, they tend to die like pretty much on the spot at 2 years old. No matter how well cared for they are, no matter how genetically primed they are, they tend to die of like tumors specifically. And that doesn't really make much sense because hamsters are really tiny and we are really large and elephants are even larger. And yet hamsters get cancer a lot more than we do and elephants get cancer a lot less than we do, even though they have more cells that could theoretically have something that goes wrong in them. And that's because it's sort of, cancer is a mechanism that a lot of species have in them to sort of control the population, to optimize the population for the best potential like growth and reproduction and whatever. And people tend to die naturally of old age much older than they are able to reproduce. And that's really weird and that makes no sense. But it does make sense because we live together in a society and like we're like helpful. Like it's helpful to have older people to care for younger people, to teach younger people, and to help them. And so this poem is about basically the moral. The moral, I guess, is like it's seeking knowledge is something important and it's something human and it's something we need to be grateful for. And helping other people, sacrificing ourselves, understanding that our controlled deaths are what keep the world moving forward, and those kinds of like really admirable moral traits I don't think are any stronger in anyone than the person that inspired this. And so, yeah, this is called Departure. We circle disorder like it is a dying sun. Revolutions are orbits, not perfect circles, but close enough that they return us. Ruptures bloom like tumors encoded into our governing forces. Programmed death, merciful. Do not fear her. She does not know how to love, nor can she know your pain, or that of children whose blood she is programmed to spill if a shadow traces the desert floor and falls upon them. Their mother is no crueler than the tumors in their brains that would leave them listing like ships run aground and kill them so that they do not have to kill each other. Programmed death, merciful. She does not know the heat of children pressed against her, or that of sun-broiled sand. She does not know what she is running to or from. She does not know what has befallen her, any more than she knows of the offensive at homes, at the death-scented laboratories, of sacrifice in the name of something greater. She does not know of fire, yet she is ash. She is ash again. Sorry, I yapped for today.
Rebels are the core. Your laughter's of inanity, not of fealty nor mirth. You have been caught up in vows plighted long before your birth, to ship off to hellscapes of slit guts and of stinging fire, to face off with the threats of loaded guns and of barbed wire. They would have you stabbing sharpened steel into tense tissue, staring at the bare corpses of young soldiers just like you, then call it a day, all to throw a victory parade, just so that they can all keep up the same tired old charade. Their war is worth fighting for, their foes are worth goring. You'd best slit their throats now, soldier, while they are still snoring. And make sure not to look into their eyes as their life drains. We refuse to pay for trauma support out of our gains.